Hey everybody, and welcome to my Circles guide video. Apologies for the delay for this. I had some mic issues last week that I only picked up on after I completely recorded this video, and the footage was kind of unusable, so I had to re-record everything again. So hopefully it's better the second time around, but apologies for the wait, and yeah, I hope you enjoyed the guide. If it wasn't already obvious, there will be spoilers in this video for the Circles unlockable class. Also, there will be some item spoilers in the item section only. You can always skip that, and I've timestamped the video down below so you can do that. And of course, as always, guys, please consider liking and subscribing if you enjoy the content. Also, leave a comment down below if you maybe would have done your build slightly differently, or maybe you do your build slightly differently. Always good to get a nice, healthy discussion in the comments about the different builds and things you can do with the different characters. And of course, you can always catch me live at twitch.tv/ManageRequest every Monday, Wednesday, and Sunday, where I'm playing Gloomhaven live, so you can always ask me any questions that you have there. All right then, well, enough with the fluff. Let's get in to the Summoner. So the Summoner, as the name implies, this character can pull a whole host of friendly monsters from the Aether to her aid. There are no hugely complex mechanics here, but you will need to choose your summons wisely, and avoiding exhaustion is key as a character with so many burn cards. This character can also level up crazy fast, so it won't be too uncommon for you to actually race ahead of most other characters in your party. We are kind of like the Spellweaver of summoning. Although quite a simple character in principle, there is still a trick to playing this character well. This character is one bad round of enemy draws from just losing everything, especially at higher levels, so managing your initiative and positioning is incredibly important with your summons. Going late, then early to try and give your summons back-to-back turns is a great way to squeeze some value out of them, and it's really never a good thing going late and your summons dying before they've even had a chance to act. But also sometimes going early and then just walking into traps and drawing focus can equally be as bad. So playing this character, although seemingly a little bit easier maybe than others, actually has some nuances to it. Summons in general can be very powerful when used effectively if you can keep them sticking around, contributing damage or other value every round. But also on the flip side, they can be pretty awful if they just die quickly without making any impact, not really making that burn effect worth it. This can lead to the Summoner often getting a bit of a bad rep as one of the weaker characters in the game, and some matchups against enemies with high retaliate or multi-target attacks, AoEs, can be an absolute nightmare for you with your low health summons. Sometimes even the design of the level itself can be against you, with lots of hazardous terrain or traps that just have to be moved through in order to finish the scenario. One of the biggest problems with summons is that they don't scale as you increase in difficulty and party level. A level 1 summon will always have that power level of a level 1 summon, unless you can invest, pretty heavily into enhancements. But even then, it's small incremental improvements. The good news, though, is that you do get more powerful summons as you level up, of course, but this does mean that this character can struggle sometimes at higher difficulties, maybe more than others. For this reason, we're going to be focusing quite often on summons that give us additional value, so not just their attack, but also maybe something tagged onto their attack, which gives us some extra value that scales into levels. Ranged summons are going to be a priority for you as they are easy to keep alive and stay away from the front lines, and this build will focus on a more hybrid approach, not just throwing out every summon every turn. We want to make sure what we have actually works for us, and we're going to be contributing some damage and attacks ourselves too. We aren't a passive character at lower levels, so we need to move through the scenario regularly, keep up with our team, and we will slowly kind of transition into this overarching general character of our own powerful army as the levels kind of increase and as we get more powerful as we level up. In general, I recommend this character best when paired with a tanky frontliner or a heavy control character who can keep the heat off your summons, and it kind of goes without saying that this character can work incredibly well with any characters who have persistent buff effects that can buff your entire team for a round or multiple rounds too. I'll also say that I've actually really enjoyed playing this character in digital. much more than in the tabletop situation, due to the 3D models of all the summons being like really nice looking and it being interesting to look at, and the game handling all of that AI for you too, so you can think about it, but the computer just acts it all out for you, which is great. This means that turns don't sort of drag on or turn into this kind of mental gymnastics as you have to figure out, you know, where your tokens need to be and shuffling tokens around, and when also enemies try to focus things too. There is also some great flexibility with this character, so don't be shy about sideboarding or experimenting a bit yourself. It's also worth noting that I always play on the highest difficult possible at 3 players in digital, which is +2. So this build has helped me get good success with that sort of player count and that level of difficulty more consistently. If you play at lower levels, then some of the summons don't get outclassed as quick and can still be very useful. So just keep that in mind, and perhaps you might find some use for some of these other summons at level 1 in particular. Okay, with that out of the way, let's get into the starting cards. So the cards we are taking are highlighted here. So Wild Animation, Living Night, Unending Dominance, Unwavering Hand, Mighty Bond, Bonded Might, Black Fire, Volatile Flame, and Ethereal Vines. And we'll go through all of the cards now too, so we can kind of just get an understanding of what they are and we can evaluate them. Forge Ferocity is a summon Iron Beast, 5 health, 1 attack, 2 move. That's not particularly great. That's pretty good health for a level 1 summon. The movement is slow and the attack is obviously very low. But on the plus side here, we have a Retaliate 1, Shield 1. So we've got a little bit of a tanky summon here, something that maybe could take some hits for us, and 2 XP. For me, who plays on higher levels of difficulty, I find that this is the kind of effect that falls off the quickest. Having a kind of tanky summon, it's all still going to be related to the amount of health you have and the amount of shield you have. And the fact that this summon only has Shield 1, Retaliate 1 means that as you kind of play on plus difficulty levels, or as you scale up the levels, this one's going to fall off pretty quick, because it's not going to take long for you to start being attacked for 3 or 4 reliably. And to be honest, with Shield 1, this thing will die to a ×2 draw and a 3 attack, right, from an enemy. So for me, this is a bit too much of a risky summon, but again, lower levels of difficulty, you might have some success. The bottom is Shield 1, affect self and all summoned allies and generate the earth element. It's an okay effect. Again, I don't think that trying to shield up your summons is an amazingly great idea. I don't think it's the strength of this character. I think you want to be focusing more on damage. So I find that it's much more beneficial to keep your summons out of trouble than try and shield them when they get into trouble, if that makes sense. So for me, this card just doesn't quite pass the kind of power level test, I think, for this character at level 1, or at least for me, how I play. Next up, we have Wild Animation, which is an awesome summon. This is actually your best summon at level 1, in my opinion. So summon Thorn Shooter. It's 2 health, 2 attack, and 1 movement. Rubbish. Really rubbish, right? I mean, the attack 2 is nice though, but it's nothing amazing to write home about. But the 2 things to write home about here that are great on this card is the range 4 and the poison. I mean, this means that this guy is going to sit back there and poison enemies just till the cows come home, right? It's just really strong to be able to sit back there and just consistently fire off these little attacks of 2 poisoning stuff, which once enemies are poisoned, that attack 2 starts to turn into an attack 3, right? So this Thorn Shooter has got some great value. Also, poison scales very well as the game goes on, so I really like this summon because poison is always going to be useful, whether you're playing at level 1 or if you're playing, you know, at level 9 with everything. So poison, incredibly strong effect, so we absolutely love this. So the only thing that this thing is kind of rough is the move 1. We do have ways to move this, which we'll get into later. Also, this is a prime enhancement target. If you're thinking about spending money on enhancing a summon, I can really recommend improving the movement on the Thorn Shooter for sure. The bottom is move 5, creates air. Air is not an element that we are particularly caring about for this build. However, there is like an air build that is possible with this character, which we'll talk about as we get to it. That's a strong amount of movement. Again, we're probably not going to be using this. We're probably going to try and get our Thorn Shooter out pretty quick, but sometimes you may find that you don't want to get it out and you can maybe use the move 5 to some success between rooms. So this is a great card. Next up, we have Living Night, which is summon 2 Shadow Wolves, and it's 3 health, 2 attack and 3 movement with Pierce 2. And that's right, that does say summon 2 Shadow Wolves. So you get 2 copies of this summon, which is actually just nuts value. To think that you're going to get basically 6 health worth of summons for a level 1 card, that's really, really good. The Pierce 2 on this as well means that your attacks are always going to be relevant. Less so as we obviously get into higher levels and suddenly some enemies have like shield 3 or 4. The 3 health is the big downside here, because aside from very early in the game, they are kind of 1 hit here from dying, but you do get 2 of them. I think Shadow Wolves is absolutely great value. You still only get 2 XP. You don't get 4 XP for playing this. You just get 2 wolves. Okay, so but I think this is yeah, a very strong level 1 summon, and absolutely we're happy to play this at level 1 easily. And the bottom is all attacks targeting you and all summoned allies gain disadvantage this round. Generate dark element. I mean, this is an okay effect. As like I said, I wasn't a really huge fan of the shield, and I'm not a huge fan of this because they're both in the same kind of vein. That element is a little bit more useful though in this build, so you can kind of keep your eye on that build, on that element, and you might actually want to generate just to generate this element at some point with some of the later cards we'll come to. Unending Dominance. This is a great card. This is a card that's going to be coming with us all the way up to level 9, most likely. I always run it all the way up to level 9, but it is incredibly strong. So the top is Summon Lava Golem, and this is a incredible summon for level 1. It's got 7 health, 3 attack, and it creates fire every time it attacks. It moves 2, and it has wound as part of its attacks, and it has retaliate 2, range 2. It's just like so much text on a summon at level 1. Really, really, really strong. Very powerful. The problem with the top of this card, though, is the card that we're giving up on the bottom in order to play this. Lava Golem, I think, is very fun, and I encourage everyone to play it at least once, because it is fun. Especially if you're playing in digital, it looks cool, and it runs around hitting stuff for a bunch of damage. It's great. And it gets you 6 XP, right? That's pretty nuts. But what you're giving up by playing the Lava Golem is you're giving up the bottom of Unending Dominance, which says recover up to 4 of your burned cards. Now, like I said, with us being the spell weaver of summoning, well, this is like a mini reviving ether. And what this allows you to do is to hit the reset button on this character when perhaps things go a little bit wrong. So if you have some summons out and they're lagging really far behind and they're just not going to be able to catch up to you because the scenario is too long or for whatever reason, or if, you know, the enemy draws really good stuff against you and they end up dying and you just don't have any summons, well, this is like the reset button for this character. You play the bottom of this, you can discard any summons that you want, put them into your lost pile, and then just basically fill your hand back up with summons. You don't even have to use it to fill your hand up with summons. I've quite often, you know, gone through scenarios where I've kept my summons alive and I've just burnt things like, you know, my kind of move summons, attack summon type cards, and then I just get them all back. I don't think you can really underestimate the value of something like this, especially on a character who only has 9 cards in hand and has a lot of burn cards, right? You will find yourself exhausting very, very quickly. If you're in a very short scenario, maybe only 2 rooms, I think you can probably make Lava Golem work. However, if it's any longer than 2, I would definitely kind of pump the brakes and I would maybe look at using this, because the bottom of this cannot be underestimated. It is really, really strong to be able to reset on this character and keep going, definitely. So next up we have Unwavering Hand, a nice simple card, heal 3, range 3 on the top for 1 XP. We haven't talked much about initiative, but this is 31 initiative, which is nice. Summons always have late initiative. That's just how they're designed and how they're made. So it's not so much of a problem, because on the turns you're playing summons out, maybe going late will be okay, but we definitely need some sort of mid-range and early initiatives on this character to be able to control our summons well too. Force 1 enemy within range 4 to perform move 1 with you controlling the actions. This can be quite good for moving an enemy out of focus of one of your summons into maybe, you know, your tanks, maybe moving somebody into a trap, maybe moving somebody into an AoE pattern for a friend, or maybe even for yourself, because you'll have ethereal vines here, which we'll get into. So there's definitely some good sort of situational use for this, and it's really nice to have a heal on the top just to support. You're probably not going to end up using this heal on your own summons. You know, you've only got 3 health on the wolves, for example, so heal 3. I mean, you might end up healing them for 2 or 1. You can occasionally remove a wound or something like that if they're unlucky and your summons get wounded. But you're probably going to use this more to heal your allies, like your actual mercenary allies, most likely. Mighty Bond. One adjacent summoned ally performs move plus O, attack plus O with us controlling the actions. Really, really good for activating the Thorn Shooter multiple times, moving the Thorn Shooter as well, so keeping it going. Because it's only got to move one, it can be difficult, right? So any opportunity you get to maybe move it just a little bit closer to the next door, as long as you're not getting it in trouble, of course, is a good idea. And getting poison up on a second target, because of course the thing with your Thorn Shooter and with your AI is it's always going to target the same thing every time, right? If it's within range and it's not dead, it's going to constantly target the same thing, which is no bad thing. But if you wanted to spread the poison around a little bit, 51 initiative, slap bang in the middle, and move 4 jump, which is actually pretty useful for this character, being able to jump around, because sometimes you might struggle to find empty hexes to summon into, and you're certainly somebody who needs gold as well, so this can allow you to maybe jump behind enemies onto like chests and stuff like that and get some gold that might be a little bit hard to get because of traps and things like that. So yeah, I actually quite like the move 4 jump on the bottom of this at level 1 too. Next up we have Bonded Might. One adjacent summoned ally performs move plus 0, attack plus 0. Feels like we've read this card before, but this is 61 initiative, so exactly the same, just a 61 initiative, but the bottom is a loot 1, non-burn. Like I said, I feel this character does need gold. I mean, if you really wanted to like max this character out, which I do think is incredibly hard. It is incredibly hard to get to max this character out unless you're playing, you know, Guildmaster mode, and you can really just farm gold as much as you like, really. Really, we're using it for the top again for comboing with Thorn Shooter, or potentially with your wolves, of course, if there's like a shielded enemy, and it makes sense, right? The thing about this is both of these cards is it does say adjacent, and we're not a particularly tanky character ourselves, so usually we're hanging around at the back with the Thorn Shooter, which is why I sort of say, hey, you're probably going to end up using this on Thorn Shooter. A card we're not taking is Biting Wind, which is attack 2, range 3. You can consume air to get an additional +1 attack, push 2, and 1 XP. Solid. This is actually a really solid top. The only reason we're not rocking this card is we're not really playing the air package, if you like. This character has sort of like, you can either go for like the fire route or the air route in sort of my experience. I much prefer going the fire route. 25 initiative too, very good initiative. Can't really say anything bad about that initiative as well. And the bottom is heal 3, range 3. No XP on this one though. Good to have a heal on the bottom because it allows you to maybe player summon and heal. So Biting Wind, I think, is actually an incredibly solid card. The only reason why it doesn't kind of fit with what we're doing is purely because we just don't have that kind of air generation. That's not really what we're going for. So I can't deny that it's a very good and versatile card. Next up, you have Black Fire, which is what we're using sort of instead, really, as instead of Biting Wind, which is Black Fire, which is attack 1, range 5, target 2, consume fire to add a wound to the attack. So we can actually wound 2 things with a little attack 1, which is super useful for this character. Get some wounds up on some enemies nice and early. The attack 1 doesn't sound like a lot, but you know, against unshielded enemies, gives you a chance to flip some cards. Who knows, maybe you flip your +2. Yeah, I actually really like Black Fire. I think it's incredibly strong, wounding 2 targets, and you'll be very happy to get them up on like a high shield but low health enemy. You know, even though you might not do any damage with the attack 1, just getting a wound up on something like a living spirit, you know, or an imp, it is just going to be incredibly useful for you. 24 initiative, so that's sort of like our earliest initiative that we have at the moment, which is important. It's important to have early initiative, but we definitely want better initiative than that, definitely. But this is a good start, let's say. The bottom is move 3, model, target all adjacent enemies. I don't think you're going to be really doing this because you'd have to move into danger and then muddle all of the enemies. Pretty unlikely. And like I said, the top of Black Fire is just so strong. I really don't see when you're going to be playing that, apart from maybe moving between rooms for a bit of extra movement. So next up is Leathery Wings, and this is a summon that we're not taking, but this is part of that air package that I was talking about. So summon Giant Bat. It has 4 health, attack 2, and generate air with every attack. It has move 2, and it has flying. Now, in my opinion, this is the weakest of our level 1 summons. The reason being really is that flying, it sounds great. It means that, you know, this summon is basically able to freely traverse the scenario. The problem is that this is a melee character, and that means that it's going to end up next to an enemy, and enemies can still attack you if you're on an obstacle, if you're next to them, if they're a melee enemy, right? Or a ranged enemy can also attack you. And with 4 health, I don't think that this thing's going to stick around for very long, if at all. And that's my main sort of problem with the giant bat. I think I would spend a lot of the scenario just trying to keep it alive, really. So it's kind of cool and definitely has some combo potential if you wanted to go down the air route. I just think this is one of the hardest summons to keep alive, and flying doesn't really scale as well as something like poison or pierce as you level up. So again, it's not really like a summon you can count on. You can't really bank on it. And the bottom is strengthen, affect all adjacent allies. This can be situationally very good. Strengthening is one of the best things you can do in the game. However, you have to sort of be at that position, right? Because it's a bottom effect, so it's not like you can move and then strengthen, and so that you can kind of get really good value out of this, which means that you're probably going to want to pair this with an early card rather than a late card. I mean, maybe you do want to pair it late, I don't know. But it makes it a bit more awkward to work, right? A bad combination of 2 effects, unfortunately. If the bottom was more usable, maybe we could consider it, but unfortunately not. A summon we are taking, Volatile Flame, which is Summon Living Bomb, which is 1 health, 2 attack, 3 move. Yeah, I know, that is trash, but hear me out, because the top of this is on death, attack 3, create fire, target all enemies within range 2. That's right, we have an AoE attack, and it could hit all enemies within range 2, which could potentially be a huge amount of enemies. I absolutely love this summon. I think it's thematically it's fantastic, and also it's a lot of fun to just run in and just chuck this in the middle of a group of enemies and then watch them just hit it and it blows up in their faces. I think it's really good. Works very well with jump, so you can use this to obviously jump over some enemies and find a nice position to be able to chuck the living bomb into place. Realistically, this is not something you're going to play immediately or very quickly. It's probably going to be something that you keep until the moment arises. But that's also because the bomb of this card is a bit of a role player for us, which is attack 2, range 3, create fire. And this is what's fueling our black fire. And so Volatile Flame is definitely a card you keep in your hand. You know, you're waiting. You find the right opportunity to play the top. You know, you've been playing the bottom to fuel up your black fire up to this point. Then you jump in, you throw the living bomb out, and then you probably use something like Unending Dominance, or you use Unending Dominance to be able to recover the living bomb back again into your hand for, you know, using it again in another room. Doesn't scale amazingly well, obviously, against shielded enemies. It's kind of sucks against shielded enemies, really. But at level 1 and even into sort of like level 2, level 3, I actually find that attack 3 can be good. And like I said, if you can improve your attack modifier deck, this can definitely get a bit better. And our final card is Ethereal Vines. This is attack 1, range 3 with Immobilize and a little 3-hex AoE. This is pretty similar to Net Shooter from the Tinkerer, except it's only an attack 1, not an attack 3, and not a burn. Being able to immobilize enemies can be very, very useful for you, because you might have multi-target sort of skeletons and things like that that are actually going to move towards your summons and are going to potentially attack them, even though maybe you've played perfectly with your focus and everything. If you have multi-target enemies, especially melee enemies, it can get really rough. So this is just a way to pin them down, make sure they don't attack. I'm a huge fan of having some control. I just like having some control in my hand from any character where I can get it. And this is, although it's not, you know, top tier control effect, this is a really good way for you to manage certain enemies. So nice and early initiative. So we'll definitely take that as well. That's very useful for us. And then the bottom is move 2, heal 1, affect all adjacent summoned allies. I don't really like the bottom of this card very much. It's good for removing poison and wound, and that's pretty much it. Like I said, most of your summons don't really have much health. They're like 1 hit away from dying anyway, most of the time. So that's all of our cards. So what I'll do now for you tabletop players, I will put a little image up on screen now of all of the cards in the board game tabletop format. So if you wanted to pause the video and pick them out, then now is your chance to do it. So take a look, and these are all of our starting cards. So just quickly before we get started with the level ups, I want to talk a little bit about starting items. For this character, I really recommend Boots of Speed, which are the initiative boots, allow you to minus your initiative by 10 or plus 10. This isn't a character who struggles massively with movement as you progress in the levels, so I think you don't need to have the plus movement boost, not nearly as much. And initiative, being able to go early or late to stop your summons from dying or getting them to act before they die, can really be very, very useful. So stamina potion, very, very important to be able to play certain effects back to back, being able to use ethereal vines 2 turns in a row, controlling some enemies for a complete 2 turns could be incredibly strong. So there's definitely some opportunities. Being stamina potion is great on every character, right? But so no difference here. Also, for a body item, I would say Cloak of Invisibility, really good at keeping yourself alive and also opening doors. I think this character is pretty good at opening doors, actually. Let's go to leveling up. So level 2. So level 2, we have Earthen Steed and we have Grasping the Void. So let's go through Earthen Steed first. So Earthen Steed has on the top any of our move actions or the move actions of an ally we have summoned. You may consume Earth to add +2 move and gain 1 XP. And it's a persistent ability, so we just get it for the rest of the scenario. This is a bit awkward, I've found. I mean, there are certain times when obviously moving a summon a lot could be very, very useful, or for yourself, you might want to move, but you're not generating the earth element loads. If you have a Cragheart in your party, then that can be obviously a lot more regular, and you can definitely use it a little bit more. But for me, I find this to be just a little bit overkill, really. And the other thing, by burning the top of this, we're giving up 2 really, really important things for this character, which is the 13 initiative on this card and the move 5 jump, right? I was saying that we're not going to really struggle with movement. Well, here you go. We're not going to struggle with movement, guys. 13 initiative can ensure that we can make sure that our summons go when we want them to go, and we can kind of manage their positioning much easier and better. I absolutely love Earthen Steed purely for the initiative and the movement. The top of this card, I think, is a bit awkward. I don't think it's great. Could be a great way to level up very, very quickly because you get 1 XP every time you do it. But I mean, this character levels crazy quick anyway. So yeah, Earthen Steed is an absolute role player card for this character. We will be taking Earthen Steed, but let's take a look at Grasping the Void, because Grasping the Void is actually a really good card that we're passing up here to take Earthen Steed. Grasping the Void is attack 2, range 3, and curse, and you can consume dark to add stun to the attack. That is like crazy good, right? Being able to stun and curse something is, and it's an attack too. It's not many characters who can do stuff like this. This is very, very good, especially just at like level 2. So incredibly strong effect. If it wasn't for the fact that Earthen Steed is such a role player necessity for this character to function in a good way, then, you know, Grasping the Void, and as an alternative card for an alternative build, it can be very, very strong. And the bottom is attack 2, range 3, and heal 2 self. Now, the attack 2, range 3, you'll take it. The heal 2 self is nice. You can maybe tag and enhance a strengthen onto there, which would make it really super busted. I almost wish that these two were flipped so that you could do the heal before the attack, right? Because then you could get the strengthen effect on that attack. Yeah, so Grasping the Void is a really great card all round, and definitely good for a different like build. Without maybe a summonless summoner build would probably run this card, but for us, Earthen Steed is just so important, so we're going to be taking Earthen Steed. So the card we're going to be swapping out here is we're going to be swapping out Unwavering Hand. The reason is really, as I said, the heal 3, range 3 is just kind of a little bit underwhelming. It is good for a little bit of support, so maybe if you don't have another support character in your party, you might want to keep this, and you may actually find that you want to get something like Ethereal Vines out of there. That's completely up to you. Personally, I'm going to be getting rid of this because I feel like having something like an Immobilize, this could potentially immobilize a couple of enemies that would do more than 3 damage. So this is a bit more proactive, whereas this is a bit more reactive, which I don't generally like. The bottom can, as we know, it can be situationally quite useful with Ethereal Vines, but to be honest, I think we can probably get rid of this. It's one of our weaker cards. We don't want to be getting rid of any of our summons yet because we're not replacing a summon, so this is kind of where we're going to be. So we're going to get rid of Unwavering Hand here, and we'll be slotting in Earthen Steed. Okay, on to level 3. Okay, so at level 3, we have Tear the Fabric and we have Oozing Manifestation. So let's talk about Tear the Fabric first. So this is kill all normal adjacent enemies whose current hit point value is less than or equal to 5, and we gain 2 XP. Now, Now, this could be a very good execute ability. Every character in Gloomhaven has an execute ability in some form or manner, and this is the one for the summoner. So this could actually kill quite a lot of stuff, and at low levels against things like living spirits, it actually could just straight up kill them without you even having to do much damage at all, right? However, it's not really in the spirit of this character, right? It's not really in the spirit of what we're trying to do. We're trying to create summons. We're trying to use those summons effectively. It's not very much in the spirit of this kind of build. I also just don't really like these kind of conditional ones. I much prefer the unconditional execute effects, or ones that are maybe a little bit easier to do, because having enemies that are less than or equal to 5 as you level up, so once you get to level 9, the enemies are going to start getting more and more health, and so you can make the argument here, hey, wouldn't it just be better to do an attack 5 against an attack 5 AoE, right? I feel like this, having a card like this so early with this restriction of 5 and the fact that it's normal enemies and not elites makes it far too situational, doesn't scale. It's probably pretty good at this exact point, but it falls off very, very quickly. The bottom is heal for self. And you can consume earth to get an additional +2 heal. I'm not really convinced about this kind of self-healing mechanic that this character has. Not quite sure really what that's about. I'm just a bit confused as to why this character has quite a lot of self-heal. I mean, we can strengthen with it, which is obviously very strong, but I don't think that was necessarily the intention. Certainly not something that we really care about. We're going to be hanging around at the back. So, and we're not going to be creating this earth element ourselves very much. So Tear the Fabric is an easy pass for us, really. Good news is we actually have a decent card that we can take instead at this level. So we have Oozing Manifestation, which is Summon Slime Spirit, 4 health, 1 attack, 3 move. Nothing crazy here. 3 move is nice though, but 1 attack's pretty meh. This guy does have Muddle and he has Shield 2, which can be really useful. Shield 2 obviously better than Shield 1, so how this kind of compares, right? I think you would much rather have the Shield 2 than have the Shield 1 and the Retaliate here. Even though this has got 1 more health, the Shield 2 absolutely translates to way more than 1 health. Absolutely, because you can just deflect attacks, you know, entirely. And the muddle effect that this applies with its attack as well will mean that the enemy that's attacking it is more likely to draw a lower attack modifier too, right? So although I'm not crazy about the top of this summon, I'm not, you know, insane, it has actually got me out of some binds where I've actually won scenarios by chucking this out, and it's somehow managed to dodge dying, and that means that I managed to live for the round and we win in a survive scenario. So yeah, pretty crazy. So I've got fond memories of playing Slime Spirit recently. Another thing that's very, very strong about this character though, this card, sorry, is the bottom, which is attack 3, range 3, and immobilize. Consume dark to add curse. So this is like an incredible effect, right? Attacking something, immobilizing something means that we can take an enemy, hopefully take an enemy out of the fight that round if we play it right, and we have decent enemies to use it with, and potentially adding the curse. Now, it's not very likely that we're always going to be at the curse. If this card didn't have the Consume Dark and Curse, I still think it would be incredibly good. So I wouldn't get too hung up on always trying to activate the curse on this. Just being able to attack 3, range 3, and immobilize something, you know, you'll often find yourself in a position where you just kind of like set up camp for a room and you don't need to move too much. So having some nice bottom actions, I think is very valuable. So easy pick here. We're taking Oozing Manifestation, a very strong bottom we can use all the time, and a top that we can play to get some XP, and in certain situations it's actually going to be very, very useful. So yeah, we love it. The card we're going to actually sort of swap out here is we're going to swap out Ethereal Vines. This is a very tricky situation really on what to swap out at this point. The reason being is that the wolves might have started to drop off a little bit for you. Depends on what difficulty you're playing at, but you might find now that the wolves are just kind of being summoned and dying. This is unfortunately the problem with melee summons. They just end up dying to just, you know, random RNG kind of stuff that happens in a scenario, right? Stuff that unfortunately you, even in your best will, sometimes you can't control. The bottom of it though does create that element, and it's the only way that we can create the element that we need for the bottom of this too. I personally, I'm going to swap out Ethereal Vines here because we're kind of swapping the Immobilize effect for the immobilize effect. I think that's okay, but absolutely I could see you maybe swapping out something else instead here. I could absolutely see you swapping out the wolves instead. Also, potentially, you could consider swapping out one of the Mighty Bond kind of cards, Mighty Bond or Bonded Might, one of the mighty cards, if you like, if you find that you're not getting loads of value out of them. But for me, I'm going to get rid of Ethereal Vines here. We are going to miss the 30 initiative. That is a real loss. However, I think if we play pretty smart, we should have our boots of initiative. We've also got our Earthen Steed. We can probably play around. And to be honest, a lot of the time you're going to want to go late rather than early. On to level 4. So level 4, we have Living Mountain and we have Divided Mind. So Living Mountain is Summon Rock Colossus. 7 health, 3 attack, create Earth. So there you go. There's a way that we can kind of create Earth if we were going down that route, which we're not. But it's got one, and it's got one movement. Now, this is very underwhelming, in my opinion. 7 health, vanilla, 3 attack, with a bit of earth generation on it. I don't think that earth generation really works very well. That move 1 also means essentially you're going to have to be using that earth generation with Earthen Steed to make it actually move around. Otherwise, this guy is going to be stuck, doing nothing for a very long time, and you're going to spend a lot of your turns just moving them. I don't really like the top of this summon at all. Yes, there is a strategy there that can be employed, but I think it's way too much work for what is a suboptimal summon. I really wish this had some sort of other passive effect on it. If it had Pierce on it, if it had Shield on it, Retaliate on it, something, just anything. Just give us anything. But unfortunately it doesn't, so I find this to be an incredibly underwhelming summon, unfortunately. The bottom is move 2, loot 1. That's very good at getting rich though. So if you do want to try and get rich, this is a card that can help you do it. Being able to move and loot in one action without having to start in the right place at the beginning of your round and use a loot 1. I think that the best use of this card really is to try and get rich. We're going to be going down the route of trying to be the best character that we can be, and the other card that we have here is Divided Mind, which is 2 summoned allies within range 2 perform move +0 with us controlling the actions. Really good, allows us to move 2 of our summons up, can be very useful. Bottom is 2 summoned allies within range 2 perform attack +0 with us controlling the actions. The great thing about this card is that if you're playing wolves, you can play your wolves out and you could immediately use the bottom here if you manage to move to a position, an advantageous position, then play your wolves and then be able to play Divided Mind and get your wolves to attack in 1 turn, which could be really good. Divided Mind is an easy pick here. And the card we're going to be getting rid of is we're getting rid of one of our Might cards. And we're going to be getting rid of Bonded Might here just because I like the 51 initiative over the 61 initiative. I prefer the move 4 jump to the loot 1. Just personal preference, but you could switch out whichever one of these 2 cards really for you. If you wanted to focus more on looting and you're actually been using this loot 1 quite a lot and you feel like you don't really need the movement, absolutely, I could see you actually swapping this one out instead. But for me, I'm going to be swapping this one out to get 55. It's a slight, better initiative too, and we kind of keep the 51 initiative. It's sort of very small margins here, but yeah, do what's best for you. On to level 5. At level 5, we have Strength in Numbers and we have Conjured Aid. Both of these are excellent cards and we probably want them both. So let's go through Strength in Numbers first. 1 adjacent summoned ally performs move +1, attack +1 with us controlling the actions and gain 1 XP. This is really good for using with your Thorn Shooter because it's going to allow it to move maybe 2. I know. Crazy, right? If you haven't enhanced it. But that move +1 doubles its movement. Attack +1 turns that attack 2 into an attack 3. Also, just is going to work very well with your wolves. Could potentially work very well with your ooze if you're playing your ooze to get an extra muddle off on another enemy. So there's definitely some really good sort of use for this. Also, this kind of effect will scale well with summons we're going to pick up later on down the line too. So this is almost like a card that you want just because, hey, when we get another summon that can do a really impactful attack, this is really good for allowing us to do that attack multiple times in a turn. 45 initiative, middle of the road, and the bottom is a kind of a weird, cool combo piece if you can pull it off. So attack X, range X, where X is the number of all summoned allies. So most of the time, this is probably going to end up being something like an attack 3, range 3, maybe an attack 4, range 4, possibly. If you're playing, normal, that's probably what it's going to end up being. However, you can, of course, go absolutely mental with this and try and summon loads and loads of allies using some of the items that allow you to summon allies too, and just go crazy and do a giant long-range attack at something. Definitely, there's some combo potential here and some fun to be had on a weird build Wednesday. So come check out the stream because I'm sure we'll be trying this at some point. In terms of just using the top as a solid ability, and the bottom as potentially a solid bottom attack when we need it. A little bit of extra damage is really good. And the other card we've got is Conjured Aid, which is Summon Healing Sprite, which is move 2, attack 1. With 2 health. Nothing crazy. Range 3, again, nothing crazy. That's like average range, but good average range. It means it's going to be able to stay out of trouble. But it performs a heal 2, range 2 at the end of its turn. And this can be hugely useful. Being able to have a summon who's just constantly just giving a little bit of heal every single turn is super good. It's important that this isn't tied to the attack. It does say at the end of its turn. So you can't use a card like Strength in Numbers, for example, to get it to heal multiple times in a turn. The move 2 might need improvement. Another potential enhancement target here to keep it moving throughout the scenario. That attack 1 may seem kind of useless, but actually being able to draw attack modifier cards, and once you start getting rolling wounds and rolling poisons in your deck, just being able to sort of spread wounds and poisons around is going to be really useful for your team. And the bottom is just move 5. Wouldn't worry too much about that. We've got plenty of movement already, and we're going to be playing it for the top. But just in case maybe you're playing a scenario where you need to race to the end, you've got that in your back pocket. So in terms of choosing a card here, I could see you going either way. We're going to take Conjured Aid first here. Absolutely, I could see you taking Strength in Numbers first if you wanted to, depending on what summons you've kept. We're definitely playing a little bit more conservative with our summons. So I think Strength in Numbers doesn't quite reach its peak potential for us yet. So we're going to be taking Conjured Aid because we're going to really value just having another summon out so that we can kind of consistently have 2 summons out at the same time. Our Thorn Shooter and our Healing Sprite are going to be our summons that will hopefully we can summon fairly early, and they can pretty much stay with us for the entire scenario mostly. So the card that we're going to be getting rid of is we're going to be doing a summon for summon here, and unfortunately now it is time to say goodbye to our Shadow Wolves. They've been good up to this point, but you've probably noticed that they've started to fall off. That attack 2, that Pierce 2 isn't really kind of cutting it anymore. You're starting to face enemies that might have as much as 3 or 4 shields, or you're going up against high retaliate enemies that now, they might be able to do an attack, but they just immediately die to retaliate afterwards. We're a bit sad to see the bottom of this card go, because obviously it was the only way that we could create Dark in order to get that curse. I do think an item that you can consider on this character is a Dark Wand, so that you can actually make that element on command when you need to. Same with a Flame Wand as well, I think is also very good, so you can continually use Black Fire without having to worry so much about using the bomb. It's a pretty easy swap, a summon that doesn't do too much for a summon that's actually very useful. So easy swap for us. Okay, on to level 6. So at level 6, we have Endless Spikes and we have Inexorable Momentum. Inexorable? I think that's how you say it. So Endless Spikes. Let's talk about this one first. This is a summon. Summon 3 Nail Spheres. So you get to get 3 summons here. You get 4 health. They have no attack though. They have no range because, well, they have no attack. And they move 2. But the thing that they have is they have Retaliate 2, Shield 1. Now, this is pretty problematic for a summon, I think. The problem is that these summons probably come into sort of like, they probably come in a bit late, really. So 4 health, it's not amazing. So we've had summons that had more than that already, or the same as that. The shield 1 is maybe means that this might survive 1 attack. The retaliate 2 is obviously based on that. So this is a really RNG based summon, in my opinion. You're putting your fate into the hands of Gloomhaven and into the hands of card flips, really, with this. I don't think having a summon to just eat an attack, just to basically absorb damage for you, it dies, but you can go, great, well, it did its job because I didn't take that attack that round. Yes, there is some value in that, but I think that is a bit overvalued and a bit misplaced at times. I think you want summons that actually actively do things across multiple turns, and it's very unlikely that this does. And even if it was to, there's a chance that it might do 2 retaliate damage. And also against ranged enemies, this thing just gets blown up and does absolutely nothing. The retaliate does not have range. So I think this might be the worst summon in the game, or potentially. It's far too situational. Even if you were to pump a lot of resources and try a very strange build where you really go all in, and I'm not going to use any spoilers, but there are ways that you can go all in on this effect by using a supporting cast, I still at that point believe this to be pretty bad. Stay away from nail spheres. Stay away. They are no good. So the bottom of this there is retaliate to affect all summoned allies. Ooh, we're doubling down on the retaliate effect here, right? Again, the summons that we're playing now basically one attack away from dying. You know, our best summon is our Thorn Shooter and our Healing Sprite. And occasionally we're playing out the Slime Spirit. Like I said, at this point in time in the game, we are not really focusing on, we're more of a hybrid. We've got a couple of summons, we're powering them up with attacks, and we're attacking a lot ourselves using Black Fire, you know, the bottom of Volatile Flame and the bottom of Ooze very regularly. So we're contributing damage ourselves. For me, this just really doesn't do it, because retaliate doesn't trigger unless they don't die, and we can't guarantee that. This card is just taking away your fate and giving it to the hands of the Gloomhaven attack modifier deck, which I really dislike doing. Unfortunately, Endless Spikes, I think, is really quite bad. Possibly the worst summon in the game, potentially. Inexorable Momentum, although, is actually a pretty strong card. Not a card that we particularly want for this build. However, cannot deny that this is incredibly strong. So attack 3, range 3, pierce 3, and you can consume air to get it +2 attack. So this could be an attack 5 at range 3. That's really strong. Being able to basically chew through most enemies. There'll be a few enemies that might have a little bit more than shield 3, but it doesn't really matter because you're attacking them for 5. So who cares? The bottom is move 3. One adjacent summoned ally performs move 3. This is quite nice, being able to move up a little bit yourself if you're at the back and then move forward. Doesn't work great for us because we're going to be often at the back with our 2 range summons, and we're just going to be using like our adjacency stuff. So we're going to be using, you know, Mighty Bond to be able to be adjacent to enemies. So we may use the bottom move 3 for the ally, but it's unlikely that we would need to move 3 ourselves to then activate that effect. So, but yeah, this is a good card, absolutely. However, I think now is a great opportunity for us to go back and actually take strength in numbers instead. I think the top is very good, helps to power up our summons, and it works particularly well with a couple of summons that we have coming up. So we're actually going to be going back here and getting strength in numbers. But this card is very strong, so I could see why some people would want to, and certainly if you're going down the air build, I think you probably do want this card. So this is a very simple swap for us. We're going to be getting rid of our last Might card, Mighty Bond, because this is just a straight upgrade here. We don't necessarily need the move 4 jump so much anymore. 45 initiative over 51, so very good. So easy swap for us here, just a better top. And the movement, like I said, we don't really care about it because we've got this move 5 jump. We generally seem to move like once per room really, and then we kind of catch up. So this is absolutely fine. On to level 7. So at level 7, we have Negative Energy and we have Staff of Visions. So Negative Energy, this is the summon that I was alluding to earlier that we absolutely want to be playing Strength in Numbers with as much as possible. Really good. In fact, we want to be using it with any of our attacks that we can do. Divided Mind 2, just getting so much value out of this. So it's 5 health, 2 attack, 3 move at 2 range, and it has Curse. So every attack is going to add Curse. So absolutely, we can use a combination of Divided Mind, you know, play the bottom of Divided Mind and maybe the top of Strength in Numbers in a turn, and actually get 3 curses because it'll do 1 curse from its AI turn, and it's going to do 2 extra attacks that we're going to control. I do think that for this particular summon, if I was to enhance one thing, it would probably be the range. Range 2 does mean that often it finds itself either not able to attack or it has to walk into danger to attack. The bottom is Curse, affect all enemies adjacent to any one summoned ally and create dark. So we get some dark generation here. So we've got another way to create dark and some more curses. I don't think we're going to use the bottom of this too much. It's kind of tricky to actually get a lot of curses off because we're playing mainly ranged summons at the moment. But we do have a card coming up where we might possibly be able to use the bottom of this a little bit more. But yeah, we've got a way here to maybe be able to create dark if we really wanted to use the bottom of Oozing Manifestation. But to be honest, I think Void Eater is definitely a summon that you want out fairly early and start getting extra value from those curses, definitely. The other card is Staff of Visions, which is attack 5 with Muddle, and this is a melee attack, which is a bit weird. This is like the first melee attack we've come across for this character. But we can consume fire to add +1 attack and wound for 1 XP. This is a good attack. You can't deny that this is not a good attack. Attack 5 plus Muddle is pretty good on its own, but then being able to be an attack 6 with wound is very strong, especially for a card that isn't a burn, right? This is the kind of effect that, you know, maybe you would see a burn on for some other characters. So you can't deny that this is like a very powerful attack card. It's just a shame that it's for this character, I guess. Not really in the spirit of what it is that we're doing. Good for an alternative build that's going to use, you know, no or very few summons, definitely. So yeah, but incredibly strong. And the bottom is move 3, strengthen, affect all adjacent allies. Very good. Kind of wish that it strengthened us as well, because then, you know, this is obviously a card meant for more of a damage build for this character, but being able to strengthen everything is obviously going to be incredibly strong. Move 3 is a little bit better than your default movement, right? So you'll take it. So yeah, this is obviously a very strong card for a particular build, just not the build we're going for. And it negative energy and the Void Eater is just so strong with the strategies that we're trying to go for. So yeah, we absolutely love negative energy. So the card we're going to be swapping out is we're going to be swapping out Volatile Flame. The reason for this is it's kind of a summon for a summon here. The Living Bomb is probably fallen off a little bit now. The attack 3, you know, is not going to do much against guys who have shield 2, shield 3. And a lot of enemies are going to have that now. We are definitely going to miss the attack 2, range 3, create fire on the bottom though. That's an incredibly useful way for us to continually play Black Fire. So I would really recommend that you have a wand at this point if you want to continually spam Black Fire, or potentially find some other way of doing it, either through an ally or mana potion or something. We'll be getting rid of Volatile Flame and we'll be bringing in negative energy. On to level 8. So at level 8 we have Intervening Apparitions and we have Otherworldly Rage. So Intervening Apparitions, the next 3 times summoned allies would suffer damage, they suffer no damage instead. And it's 3 XP for the 3 charges. Wow. This could be the most underwhelming level 8 card in the game. I think it's probably up there. This is pretty bad. I would really focus on keeping your summons alive through the use of initiative, items, focus, positioning. And because we're playing ranged summons, you know, mostly ourselves, it's very unlikely they're ever going to get attacked. And we're doing our job wrong if they do. So, and the other thing is we have a reset button with Unending Dominance. So even if things do kind of go wrong, then we have a way of maybe putting things right again. I find this to be an incredibly weak effect for, you know, what is a level 8 card. You know, if you were even to have like a tank summon, if you're playing 4-player and you have a tank summon and their job is to go out and take damage, they're probably going to get attacked by more than 3 things in a round, which means that this isn't even as good as some cards that allow you to just negate all damage for a round, which some characters get as early as level 1. Well, let's hope that maybe there's a bottom that can save it, shall we? Remove all curse cards from your attack modifier deck, then shuffle the attack modifier discard pile back into the deck and create light. Well, that's unfortunate. A very bad situational bottom that will not be used by most people ever to any great success. In certain scenarios against certain types of enemies that curse you a lot, yes, this could be useful. But it's from your attack modifier deck. It's not from all of your allies. So it doesn't really, it basically only solves the problem slightly. It doesn't, you know, suddenly make the scenario easy because only you remove the curses. And oh wait, you probably shouldn't be getting cursed because you're at the back of a room. So yeah, this is, I think, the worst level 8 in the game. I can't even believe that a card like this is even available at level 8. It should be way, way lower. Yeah, it's just, I don't really know what the thinking was with this. It's just really bad. So I don't really know what to say, but it's just, yeah, it's pretty bad. So moving swiftly on, we have Otherworldly Rage as our other level 8, which is one summoned ally within range 3, performs attack +2, wound, and poison with us controlling the actions. Well, there we go. And we have a absolute slam dunk home run card up against potentially the worst card in the game. So, I mean, how is that possible? You know, I think this is not even fair. I mean, please let me know in the comments down below if anyone has ever played Intervening Apparitions at all, ever. Please let me know. I would be so interested to hear, because the top of this card is just nuts. Being able to do an additional +2 attack. Suddenly our voice is going to be attacking for 4 with curse, poison, and muddle. I mean, how? That's insane. The bottom is swap position with anyone's summoned ally and move 3. This is really good because you can potentially just save a summon from trouble or move a summon and save yourself if you need to. I've used this to swap around with the slime and with other things sometimes, the ooze, right? I've used this to some great effect sometimes to be able to, for me to take hits and for it to take hits at the right tactical times. There's some really good tactical use at the bottom of this. You can definitely use to mess around with enemy focus and who you want to take damage. Really, really like it. Yeah, Otherworldly Rage, amazing card. We absolutely love it. And yeah, I have no idea about this one. Sorry. We're now going to get rid of Black Fire, probably because you don't have the fire generation anymore. You may still have the flame wand. If you do, you can always sell it and, you know, invest that gold into something else that's going to be very useful for you. So I think we can quite safely get rid of Black Fire now, and we're actually, you know, gaining the wound effects on a summon attack. So this is where we are now making that hard transition into, we are mainly about summons and controlling those summons now. That's kind of like this is like the last 2 levels have basically been that kind of like switching point where we have now transitioned into being kind of general of our own army rather than actually doing a lot of attacking ourselves. So yeah, easy swap. And yeah, without the fire, then this is obviously very, very bad. And this is just an incredibly strong card. Okay, so finally, on to level 9. So at level 9, we have Horned Majesty and we have Interplanar Mastery. So let's talk about Interplanar Mastery for a sec. So the top is recover up to 2 of your burned cards. And it's a burn and a permanent loss itself, which is the little symbols there in the bottom right. So this is another one where I'm scratching my head. Because if the last card, Intervening Apparitions, was the worst level 8, possibly this could be the worst level 9. Now, I don't think maybe it quite gets that caliber. It's got 22 initiative, it's got move 6 jump on the bottom, 2 very, very useful things for this character. But the top, recover up to 2 of your burn cards, but you have to burn this. This means that you're actually only up 1 card in card advantage, right? You've burned a card and you get 2 cards back, meaning you've netted 1 card. Really not very good in terms of gaining card advantage in Gloomhaven, especially considering that at level 1, we had a card that could recover up to 4 of our burn cards, which gets us essentially burns 1. So we net 3 cards on the deal, which is 2 additional cards. That's a full, you know, that's just, it's pretty crazy. I don't understand why burning a card to get 2 cards back, we're netting 1 card on the exchange, is level 9, and at level 1 we're netting 3 cards in the exchange. Yes, the positioning of the effect is interesting, right? Having this is the top, whereas this is on the bottom. There are definitely some dynamics going on with, you know, the initiative. The fact this has got move 6 jump is much more useful. This card basically stays in your hand and is used as like a move 2 for the entire scenario until you find an opportunity when you need to play or you want to play the top or the bottom, right? Whereas this is at least does something while it's stuck in your hand. It moves 6 and jump and is a good initiative. I really wish that this was just maybe a little bit more powerful. If it recovered 3, then I think maybe you could make the argument that yes, now maybe netting 2 on the deal could be worth it. But I think only netting 1 card is just not enough to sort of save this card. It also doesn't really help that at level 9, this card is up against, you know, your kind of, let's just say your trademark summon, if you like, which is Horned Majesty, which is summon a black unicorn, 6 health, 4 attack, 4 move, and 3 pierce. This is just bonkers. The move 4 means that this thing is always going to be up in people's faces, always going to be attacking. The attack 4, really strong. Also, remember, we have lots of ways to be able to attack multiple times now. The 6 health is not great, but it's okay. But the pierce 3 means that it's going to be able to actually do damage to things. I really like the black unicorn. You do have to be careful about this though. You have to be so careful with this summon, because if you just leave it out there, it will die very quickly. One of the reasons why I don't really like melee summons typically, but I think at level 9 you can let your hair down and have a bit of fun, and this is definitely a great summon to have fun with. The bottom is also incredibly strong, which helps out so much too, just in case you decide actually I don't really want to play the unicorn. You've got an incredibly strong bottom to consistently use, which is all summoned allies within range 3 perform attack +0 with us controlling the actions. And considering that we've got 3 range summons as our like kind of troop, if you like, you know, we have our Void Eater, we have our Healing Sprite, and we still have our old reliable Thorn Shooter in there. We have a really good mix of summons that can do some damage. You know, get your Thorn Shooter to act first and poison something, then you can obviously get the other 2 guys to attack and get the benefit of that poison. Really like it. I think it's a very simple choice. Maybe this isn't the worst level 9 in the game, but it's probably up there in terms of discussion. It's certainly the most boring level 9 I think I've seen. Okay, so now we're at level 9. Really, you can kind of start to just free flow a little bit here about what it is that you want to keep and what you want to get rid of. But I'm going to be getting rid of Oozing Manifestation here, just because, again, the top of this summon is going to have started to fall off. The shield 2, although good, only 4 health. We're probably going to end up still dying to a couple of attacks with this Slime Spirit now, so I think it's pretty comfortable and easy to get rid of. And we're losing the bottom attack, and this is kind of like the last of our own attacks that we're getting rid of here. So we'll be getting rid of that, and now we're basically all in on controlling our summons. We don't actually have any attacks ourselves. We are all about just sort of supporting our summons at this point and controlling our big army of summons that we have, and yeah, just doing as much damage as possible as we can with our summons. So for tabletop players, I will now put up on screen all of our cards at level 9, so you can pause the video here if you'd like to be able to just separate them out and jot them down. So here are the level 9 cards on our final level 9 build with the summoner. So perks for this character, I think, is pretty simple. You're really just trying to get your deck to move in a much more positive direction. So the first thing you want to do is consistency. Then we're going to go for intensify. Then I'm going to start going for focus here, but I could absolutely see a good reason to bring in greater immunity. Bear in mind though that greater immunity doesn't do anything to summons, because obviously you summon them in. If you end up having to discard cards, that can be a bit rough on this character. So if you have to start with cards in your discard, that can sometimes be a little bit tricky for this character, a bit hard for you to work out what ones to put in your discard with such a small hand. To be honest, I usually go for focus first, and then we'll go for greater immunity afterwards. Next up, we're going to go for intent. And once you've done that, you might have a few perks left to go depending on how long you play this character for. But we're going to go for bloodletting. The reason being that just having more wounds is going to be great, and poison we can control a bit more with our Thorn Shooter. I don't think that the heal 1 rollings are particularly good for our summons. They might be okay for you, but like I said, our summons are kind of like one shot and dead, and that's kind of like how they are. So having rolling heals doesn't really do much. And also I feel like with the elemental rolls, you should probably play a little bit more into getting them yourself. yourselves. But if you were to go for elemental rolls, I think that is kind of fine depending on how you want to do. You're always pretty happy to draw a wound, right? So very happy to go bloodletting. Then we'll go in Venom because we're going to have lots of summons. Even though we do have Thorn Shooter, I still think I value Poison. So just getting your healing sprite to maybe poison something can be very good. And then finally, it's really down to personal preference, which ones you want. It's kind of awkward. I really wish that fire and dark were paired and not air and then air and earth, because then we could definitely take a flip fire and dark. That would be great for this build. It's a bit unfortunate that they're split out this way. So now it's just down to personal preference really on which ones you would prefer. Absolutely can see you doing recover or doing blaze or doing burial at this point. It's going to come down to your group and your party and your personal preference. Okay, on to items. So for head slot items, I think early, you're probably going to want something like a Hawk Helm. Hawk Helm is very good for just extending the range of your living bomb bottom attack for that attack 2 range 3. Making it range 4 can be very useful. Sometimes you might struggle to play the bottom of that plus Thorn Shooter. I think quite a good opening term for this character is to play that and Thorn Shooter. That works really, really well. Other really good items are going to be Telescopic Lens for the additional range, of course. Empowering Talisman, really good on this character if you can keep doing stamina potions over and over again, as well as Pendant of Dark Pacts is also incredibly strong. So I mean, Pendant of Dark Pacts is strong on most characters, but also incredibly strong on this character. You do attack a lot, so you will end up drawing the curse here, but I think the curse effect is, you know, I mean, it's a necessary evil, right? I think the effect is very, very powerful. So I think that the benefit that you get far outweighs the fact that you may actually draw a curse occasionally, once while using this item, right? For body item, I think Cloak of Invisibility is going to be the go-to for most people. I think that you're probably going to end up keeping this for the entire all the way through. If you do get access to something else, Cloak of Phasing can be really, really good for you. It does kind of negate some of the jump that you have, obviously, but you have some big moves. So being able to go invisible and just hide in a spot adjacent to lots of your summons and stuff can be very, very useful. And also potentially Blinking Cape. This allows you to do a move action and not have to play a bottom move action, right? It's like you get one free move action and a move 4 jump, which can be very good if you want to play both a top and a bottom in the same turn. So I actually really like Blinking Cape for that purpose too. For your hand item, I really think that you want to be considering using wands. Most likely, you will want this item, but we'll come back to that. So you want to use Wand of Infernus probably, and you're going to be also wanting to use Wand of Darkness. Wand of Darkness is obviously more pressing for you rather than Wand of Infernus, because you should be able to consistently generate fire through your living bomb most of the time. However, you know, Wand of Darkness, you actually struggle to make dark, so potentially this could be it. But of course, the real item that you're really moving towards is the Staff of Summoning. That is the kind of hallmark item for this character, and one that you're going to be very, very happy for. And it's really, really good because it's just a move 3. So, you know, Thorn Shooter can move 3. It doesn't care about what the movement of the summon is. So it really helps those low mobility summons that are so good. Something that's a little bit off the wall, I can recommend the bombs. So potentially using things like Volatile Bomb to turn your bottom Oozing Manifestation into a AoE that immobilizes, so it kind of turns into Ethereal Vines, and could potentially curse a bunch of people. 3 curses could be very, very strong. Same with Unstable Explosives, same use as well. That could potentially do up to 4 with that. Also, both of these combo very well with the bottom of Strength in Numbers. If you can get a huge bottom attack of Strength in Numbers where you've got lots of summons out, and then you can turn it into an AoE, that can absolutely just wipe some enemies off the face of the map. So some sort of small combo use there, absolutely, which could be a bit of fun. Also, there is one hand item that is actually a summon item, which is Mountain Hammer, summons a warrior spirit. I think that this item is a little bit cute. I don't really like it. The move 1 is really bad. The attack 3 is okay. The health 4 is pretty bad. Doesn't scale particularly well, but if you can get this item for free, you pick it up for free or whatever, I think it's absolutely fine. Not something that I would really seek out though. I think this is a bit overkill. So next up, leg items. Quite honestly, the only boots that you really need early game is boots of speed. Being able to increase or decrease your initiative by 10 is just very, very useful for this character to make sure your summons don't get killed or that they actually get to act in a turn rather than taking damage and just immediately dying. Just very, very useful for this character. And obviously the upgraded version, boots of quickness, is a natural upgrade for you as a character. Very, very, very strong. I don't think you necessarily always need to go for boots of quickness, but it is a nice luxury to have if you can. There really isn't any other boots that I would suggest on this character at all. These are really that good. Onto small items. So small items are pretty obvious. You have lots of small summon items that you can maybe use. You're the Falcon figurine here. You've also got the skull ring, which allows you to summon eliminators. I think that the small summon items are okay, not amazing. You might find some use out of them. I think you can probably spend your money in better places though, because most of them, in fact all of them, are melee summons, which means that they are likely going to get themselves killed pretty quickly. Stamina potions, incredibly strong on this character, as it is on every character. Doubly so for you because you have a very small hand size, so this will allow you to go longer before needing to then use your unending dominance to get burned cards back. Scrolls can also be very, very good. So scrolls will allow you to heal your allies, potentially your summon if you need to, like especially when you get the unicorn, you could maybe heal the unicorn with this, but also just very nice thing to have as a bit of support for some of the other characters or for yourself. All types of scrolls are very, very useful for this character. Sun, moon, and star earrings, very, very good. Will allow you to refresh. Star earring in particular, being able to refresh those initiative boots. You don't really have any other items that you refresh apart from maybe Hawk Helm potentially, but or telescopic lens, but I think this is just very, very good for you to be able to basically refresh initiative boots and be able to do the heal 3 and get 2 cards back. Ring of Brutality, very good because this allows you to play 2 tops in a turn potentially, which will allow you to maybe do double summon. All of these items are pretty much good on every character, right? But again, there are certain very good things you can do with this character. So having 2 summons out by the end of round 1 of the game, in turn 1, is very strong. Let's quickly talk about enhancements for this character. So enhancements are difficult because realistically it's going to come down to how much gold you're going to have, and enhancing summons is really where it's at in terms of getting more kind of power out of your summons and also out of the gold that you're going to spend here. But it's incredibly expensive. Some of the best ones you can do is movement on Thorn Shooter. That's going to set you back 100 gold. Adding extra attack as well will be very good. 175 once you've already done the one. So, you may want to do the attack first, but I personally like to do movement. Always do movement first, but it's up to you. You could also do attack first instead. Now, at this point, you're probably already out of money if you're playing the campaign, I would think. But there are some other ones that you can do. Blackfire, if you don't play the character all the way up to level 9 and you're okay with investing some money, additional target on this could be super useful, being able to wound 3 things. Except if you're playing in 2-player, then there's going to be less enemies on the board, so you might not find it as useful. But this is a potential enhancement, being able to get an additional target here. I also really like enhancing the healing spirit. Enhancing the healing spirit with additional move, I think, is very important because sometimes it can fall a bit behind with the two movement. But again, 200 gold. It's very, very expensive. This character does need a lot of loot to be enhanced. I think that is a bit of a pitfall with this character. And in digital, we have as much gold as we like, pretty much. So we can obviously afford all of these really great and wonderful enhancements. However, in the campaign, you're probably only going to be able to afford 1 or 2 of these, so pick them very wisely with the characters that you use the most. Okay, so there we have it. There is my guide on the summoner. I hope you guys really enjoyed it. This is a very interesting character to talk about. I think that it's a character that gets a little bit of a bad rep because of the summons are generally not as powerful as other things you can do in the game, and they're quite hard to manage. But I think it's a very valuable character. I think it's a very rewarding character to play, and there's definitely some fun to be had, especially if you enjoy managing all of those little summons and getting them to go to work for you. So yeah, I really enjoy this class and I had a lot of fun making this guide. So I hope you enjoyed watching. Don't forget that you can always catch me live at twitch.tv/ManageRequest, where I stream every Monday, Wednesday, and Sunday. So come hang out and let me know what you thought about the guide there as well. And of course, consider liking and subscribing the video if you did really enjoy it. Only if you did enjoy it though. And that really just leaves me to say thank you all so much for watching. I really, really appreciate it. And I will catch you in the next guide, which will be 3 spears. Bye.
I think still, yeah. Interested.
Oh,
Scout
that's the blessing from Scout.
Yeah.
That's the blessing from.
Isaac, at this point, can we get your approval to add an additional attack modifier deck for allies in the digital version?